video showing Engelbert has broken her silence about Caitlin Clark injuries and the WNBA physicality.
The whispers have become alarms, and the alarms have now become sirens. For months, fans said Caitlin Clark was being targeted. For months, clips went viral showing her slammed to the floor, shoved off screens, hacked in the paint, and left without calls. For months, people said something wasn't right, and league officials brushed it off. Commentators argued about whether fans were exaggerating, and the commissioner herself downplayed officiating complaints.
Has arrived. That is, Kathy, the biggest gangster on the planet, has responded to everything that has transpired this basketball season. One being the injuries to superstar players such as Caitlin Clark and many others. Another being the WNBA officiating. Now, this is arguably the worst season in the league history for the WNBA referee.
But now, with this audio leak, everything changes. Because this isn't just suspicion. It isn't just perception. If this recording is authentic, it is confirmation that the commissioner of the WNBA, Kathy Engelbert, directed referees to treat Clark differently. And if that is true, the league has crossed a line that no sports league can survive crossing. What once felt like conspiracy now feels like proof. And that proof doesn't just sting, it burns a hole in the WNBA's credibility.
Pull it up right now. So Kathy Engelbert was featured in the latest episode, in case you missed it, on Apple podcast site. So let's listen to it, man. Let's see.
Yeah, and this season in particular, several key stars have missed some games, and the Indiana Fever are on the path to make a postseason berth as well, clinching a spot, but without their star Caitlin Clark. When you think about the number of injuries this season and going into the postseason, how does the league continue to build the momentum when some of the star power may be sidelined?
Think about what that means. Caitlin Clark, just 2 years into her professional career, is no longer just an athlete. She's a symbol. She pulled the WNBA out of the shadows of niche viewership and into NBA arenas packed with fans. She broke attendance records. She smashed TV rating ceilings. She sold out jerseys faster than manufacturers could produce them. ESPN and ABC cleared programming because her games were guaranteed eyeballs in a way no WNBA product had ever been before.
Yeah, I've said this before. Injuries are it's one of the toughest things in sports. But the reality is you're already seeing it in the NFL. There's high profile ones in other sports, and it's totally unfortunate that we've had high profile injuries this year. Our data shows it's about, the same injury rates as last year, but I know that doesn't make anyone feel any better. But obviously we constantly work with players and team doctors and trainers and health staff and utilize data to ensure we're doing everything we can do to keep our players from a health perspective. But they're incredible athletes on the court, and the game is really fast and physical. And, I'm so impressed with, how they play this game and what they're putting on the court every night, and the talent, the speed. I played Division I college basketball at Lehigh University, and I don't think I ever lifted a weight. We had no strength and conditioning. We had no nutrition, back in nutritional aspects back then. And I think I'm just so impressed, and, how much respect I have for what the players are doing day in and day out. So it's an unfortunate part of the game. But we think we've built, beyond one player, 2 players, or 5 players, or 6 players. Every team has to have a roster where people can step up and show up. And I think sports has shown that a lot of role players help you win championships. And I think Indiana making the playoffs, Golden State making the playoffs, they've had injuries. New York's had injuries. Almost every team in the league has had some significant.
Nike bet their next shoe line on her. Ticket brokers saw spikes whenever her team hit the road. She wasn't just a player. She was the sun that WNBA gravity revolved around. And how did the league repay the woman who carried them into the spotlight? According to this leak, by instructing referees not to protect her, by essentially telling officials that her pain was part of the process, that the physicality made her tougher, that the game shouldn't bend around a single star. That's not just short-sighted, that's sabotage. And it's sabotage at the highest level, the commissioner's office, not rogue referees, not competitive teams trying to knock down the best leadership. From the very top, we're on right to be furious, because this wasn't hidden.
Another area I think of concern was regarding the officiating this season. I know that's something that's talked about year over year. What steps is the league taking to ensure the fair and consistent calls are being made throughout these high stake playoff games?
Yeah, I think, Christina, I smiled when you started that question because I don't think it's just this year. I think every year, everybody complains about officiating, by the way, in every sport. So, but that means people care. They care so much. And we hear the concerns from the ecosystem in our league, whether it's fans, players, coaches. We take it seriously. We understand there's frustration. Our game is constantly evolving. We just talked about the speed, talent, and physicality, and we recognize that, you know, as leagues change and rules change and players get bigger and stronger and faster, and the officiating needs to change. So as our game evolves, we'll continue to work hard on officiating. We do have a thorough process. I didn't know this until I came into a league, because I was one of those complaining about officiating in all sports before I became a commissioner. But thorough process to becoming an official, extensive training and education, but also the accountability on a nightly basis. Every single game, every single play, call or non-call, is reviewed. There's evaluations, so teams have the opportunity to provide feedback. So we're working as hard as we can to make sure we're getting consistent officiating, but I understand the frustrations and we hear them.
Every game, spectators could see Clark take unusual levels of punishment. Every game, fans screamed about the obvious no calls on social media. Every game, video compilations of Clark getting decked by defenders racked up millions of views online. And still, leadership brushed it off, as if the audience were blind or dramatic. The fans weren't blind, and they weren't dramatic. They were right, and now they feel betrayed, because it turns out their suspicions weren't whining. They were receipts. Now the league stands exposed. Let's widen the lens here. Every successful league understands one truth: protect your stars, protect your product, build around your icons, because they drive the business. That's why the NBA evolved its rules to protect scorers like Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. That's why the NFL protects its quarterbacks with roughing the passer penalties and rules about where a defender can even touch them. That's why in international soccer, referees come down hard on tackles against global names like Messi or Ronaldo, because nobody pays to see a star get carted off before halftime. Protecting stars isn't favoritism, it's business, and it's smart business. But the WNBA? If this recording is legitimate, they turned that logic on its head. Instead of sheltering Clark, they allegedly weaponized referees to make sure she felt the heat. Why? Why would the league bite the hand that feeds it? The reason might be insecurity. The WNBA was terrified of becoming the Caitlin Clark League. They wanted to prove that the league was bigger than one player, so they deliberately tried to chip her down. Instead of embracing her breakthrough success, they tried to contain it. Instead of growing through her, they tried to moderate her. That's not strategy for longevity. That's fear disguised as leadership. That's ego disguised as parity. The comparison to Michael Jordan is impossible to ignore. In the 80s, the Pistons created the Jordan rules to rough him up because he was too dominant. But those were rival coaches, rival teams, brutality born from competition. The NBA as a league never encouraged officials to look the other way. Quite the opposite. They leaned into Jordan, marketed the hell out of him, and built their empire on his back. That's how you go from a struggling league with tape-delayed finals to a global superpower. You protect your megastar because your megastar protects you. Caitlin Clark could have been the WNBA's Jordan. She could have tripled the league's value in 5 years, brought in bigger sponsors, attracted new broadcast deals, cultivated a global audience. Instead, the league allegedly decided to humble her. They didn't create a business model around her. They created the Clark rules, sanctioned from the top, executed by the refs, and visible to anyone with working eyes. That's not growth, that's cannibalism. And there's more to this than just marketing. Consider the physical consequences. Clark has already had to shut down her season. Fans thought it was wear and tear, maybe standard injuries that happen to every athlete. But with this leak, fans can't help but ask, were those injuries really just bad luck, or were they compounded by a league that instructed referees to let her get chopped down repeatedly? Every drive, every shove, every fall now looks different when you know there may have been orders not to protect her. That's why Candace Parker's comments are so striking. Earlier, she praised Clark for not rushing back, for managing her health smartly. Fans thought it was a normal veteran message. Now, with this audio floating around, it reads like a hidden warning. Parker essentially signaled, "Good job, Caitlin. Don't sacrifice your career for a league that isn't protecting you." Prophetic words, because if referees were told to let her endure more punishment, then Clark wasn't just battling defenders, she was battling an orchestrated system. And sponsors? This is their nightmare. ESPN dedicated programming hours to Clark. She was their WNBA centerpiece, the content machine everyone could rally around. Nike poured millions into her brand. The league's success suddenly had corporate giants with skin in the game. What are those corporations thinking now, staring at headlines about deliberately targeted officiating? Companies hate scandal. They hate instability. They hate risk. And nothing says instability quite like a league sabotaging its own star. How long before advertisers start pivoting, saying maybe women's sports deserve investment, but maybe not with this league in particular? And we can't ignore the political consequences. Sports doesn't operate in a vacuum. Congress has already sniffed around sports scandals like doping, gambling, civil rights, and labor rights in the past. The WNBA already had whispers of complaints surrounding fairness, race-based targeting, and discrimination. Add a leaked recording that allegedly shows the commissioner encouraging unfair treatment of a player, and this thing could explode on Capitol Hill. Hearings, investigations, subpoenas. All it takes is one ambitious lawmaker wanting the cameras, and the WNBA becomes the next televised scandal. And once that happens, all the league spin in the world won't be enough to bury it. Meanwhile, the world market is wide open. European teams, Australian leagues, and Chinese clubs would hand Caitlin Clark a contract tomorrow that triples her WNBA salary and treats her like the VIP she is. They wouldn't make her the target. They'd make her the brand. They'd fly her first class, protect her body on the court, build broadcasts around her presence. And if she walked away tomorrow, would anyone blame her? She's 23. She has endorsements. She has generational wealth already set. She doesn't have to bleed for a league that views her as a problem more than a prize. If Clark leaves, the WNBA loses not just a star, but the only pillar keeping its roof up. Collapse would follow instantly. So what next? The WNBA basically has two routes forward. They can deny everything, call the audio fake, insist it's taken out of context, and try to spin fans back into silence. Or they can cut Cathy Engelbert loose, force her to resign, and pretend a change at the top is enough to restore faith. Both options fail. One insults fans' intelligence, the other admits guilt without fixing the deeper rot. The trust is already burned, and once trust is gone, you can't buy it back with slogans about transparency. The truth is, the only real corrective action would be tearing this culture out from the roots. New commissioner, independent officiating reviews, real accountability, not PR checklists, public honesty about what happened. But does anyone believe the WNBA has the courage for that? No. The track record proves otherwise. For years, they've chosen spin over truth, denial over transparency, and short-term band-aids over long-term solutions. And that's why this scandal feels fatal. Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA as its savior. By all measures, she saved it, delivering attention, money, and momentum. But now, 2 years in, she's being treated not as salvation, but as threat. A league that sabotages its own savior has no plan for survival. You can't strangle your golden goose and then act shocked when the eggs stop coming. It's been exposed for what fans long suspected, not a league protecting its stars, but a league tearing them down out of fear. So here's the question that now sits like a dagger at the league's throat. Does Cathy Engelbert resign to take the blame, or is the WNBA already beyond saving? Because if Caitlin Clark decides she's had enough, the WNBA's story doesn't end with growth and respect, it ends right here, remembered not for its rise, but for the savage way it destroyed itself.